Okay. I believe. Okay, can we start? Probably we can. Hello, everyone. My name is Marco, and today I'll be your host. Today we have two speakers who are going to talk about how they move from system admin to a developer. And welcome to Cloud Lunch and Learn. Thank you for being today here. If you have any questions, feel free to comment directly on YouTube channel, and we will receive the comment, and later on the guys will answer them. So we have today with us Vladimir and Milos. And just before we go ahead with their presentation, I wish to say a couple of words. What we actually having soon, we are organizing a marathon, Cloud Lunch and Learn Marathon. Is going to be in May. It's going to be a global conference where we will have almost hundreds of different speakers across the globe. It's going to be 24 hours presentation, and it's going to be one of the largest conference in the world. So be sure to sign up. We are looking for speakers as well. So if you want to speak there, of course, feel free to apply for it. I'll provide you with the links later on where you can actually apply for it. Also, we are having next week and the week after, we have lots of scheduled presentations. So it's going to be fun. So I'm going to put forward to Vladimir. So here you are. And like I said, if you have any questions, feel free to ask and we will answer. Thank you. Vladimir, go ahead.
Thank you, Marco. Hello, everyone, and big greetings from Belgrade and Amsterdam. I'm in Belgrade at the moment, Milos in Amsterdam. Hi, Milos.
Hi, Vladimir. Hi, everyone.
So, yeah, before we start, I just would like to make some correction that Mark said. We will not talk about how we transform from sysadmin to developer side. No. We are not developers, but we are just admins, cloud engineers, and architects who need to know a little bit more about typing and command line, utilities, languages, and at similar things than standard and usual sysadmins, Windows sysadmins, I need to be correct, doing a long time ago. So basically, we can start. I was a happy sysadmin. What happened in the meantime? Why I needed to clicking on keyboard instead of mouse? So my name is Vladimir Stefanovic, coming from Belgrade, Serbia. I'm cloud solution architect and Serbian company SuperAdmins, focused on public cloud technologies. I'm Microsoft Azure MVP, Microsoft certified trainers for long time, regional lead for all trainers in Serbia. Along with Milos and our colleague Alexander, we are leading user group Serbia. We are organizer of Azure Saturday conference, first conference in our area. And here is my Twitter handle. So feel free to follow me, ask if you need to ask anything. I would like to reply to your questions, to your comments, etc. Give you some answers, of course, if I know. Milos, would like to present yourself?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Miloš Kutinsky. I'm currently living in the Netherlands, Amsterdam, and I'm working as a cloud engineer. So as Vladimir mentioned, we are together working in the organization of user group back in Belgrade and the Azure Saturday Conference. And of course, after today's session, if you have any additional questions, you can also reach me on Twitter. You can see my handler there. Thanks.
Okay, I think that we can start right now. We prepared a lot of demos today. We will not focus on just slides, especially because all of us like demos, and we would like to show you how that exactly looks like now if you're cloud admin, cloud engineer, what you need to know, and unfortunately, that will be just one small piece of technology that we need to know. And this real-world story, basically, based on example of usual Windows sysadmin, especially because when I worked as a Microsoft trainer, I met a lot of people who are from Windows administration side, and 95% of them were scared about using PowerShell and other command line utilities. Miloš, do you have any opposite experience, or unfortunately on the same side with me?
No, the CLI was always a scary thing among system administrators.
Yeah, I need to be honest that I was also 7, 8, 9 years ago. I was not fan of PowerShell and other command line tools. I will mention PowerShell because that's native for Windows environments. But once I started to use them, I realized how that is really cool and what I can do with that. And so let's start. As I said a long time ago, sysadmin's favorite tool was a mouse. So many Windows system administrators today don't like to use any kind of tools, command line utilities, whatever which is similar to that, and just like to clicking around on Windows desktop, and that's it. But if you want to transform yourself from sysadmin, classic sysadmin, to cloud admin, engineer, or even more architect, you definitely need to start using so many other tools if you want to increase your productivity, especially because everything is so fast today and so complicated to satisfy your clients if you are not using another way. So a little bit later, sysadmin started to use keyboard for simple commands, for example, and believe or not, today are maybe 50% of Windows admin in my environment, and in guys who I know that will tell you, yes, I using PowerShell. What is your usual command? Get testnet connection or something similar. What about scripting? Nothing. Everything will be done on more or less the same way, like you doing with mouse, but only typing. Of course, there were a lot of highly skilled admins like Miloš and me who started in early days to use some kind of these tools, and today's transformation is much easier than for guys who didn't want to use it. So if you are not fan of command line tools, languages, or whatever, you're not developers, you're still admins, you need to start to work with those kind of tools. So once sysadmin decided to move from mouse to command line, somehow Azure was mature product, and then started something very special. Someone decided to introduce PowerShell, ARM, Azure DevOps, and so many other tools. I cannot put all of those pictures on one single slide. So, Miloš, what is your experience and regarding the DevOps today and those kind of tools, and how was your transformation from classic sysadmin, because we worked together a long time ago. We were on the same place. How was your transformation?
True. As you mentioned, when I started, we were maybe able to write some bash scripts or some small batch, couple of lines to try to automate some processes. And then PowerShell is already about 14 years with us from the first versions. So yeah, those were our first steps of automation in the on-premises world. And of course, that was, for us, I believe, the easiest transition when Azure came into the story, because the PowerShell AZ module was presented. And yeah, that's how we started to experiment more with the cloud environment. But today, as you said, there are so many different tools, third-party products that you can use in order to automate your processes. So you either need to choose the preference, what you would like to learn and what you would like to use in future, or you need to adapt based on the company where you work at, because yeah, you can land in an environment where they are using something completely different and you need to learn. So it's a constant learning process nowadays. It's going much faster.
Yeah, of course. That is something we wouldn't like to scare you about all of these tools. As Miller said, you don't know to all of those tools. But
No,
if we start counting, I think that in just simple counting, we counted 8 or 9 tools that are on market today and that are very popular, and few of them, like Bicep, for example, which are in early alpha beta phases, will become more and more popular over the time. So what's happened with the happy sysadmin? Does sysadmin become a developer or not? That's really interesting question. No. Everything is so close today, especially if we talk about DevOps methodology, DevOps implementation, philosophy, and everything about DevOps. We need to work together, and if we want to deliver a really good product, and we need to use those tools, not all of them, but one really big amount of those tools. So we need to start thinking about automation. Automation is not possible if we don't want to typing on keyboard, writing templates, scripts, and etc. So we can talk hours, days, weeks about all things and how we can improve all those processes. But we just need to show you today how that exactly looks like with 4 different, the most popular automation tools for Microsoft Azure. So we will start with PowerShell, Azure CLI, ARM templates, and finish with Terraform. If we have more time, we will show you just some few cool demos more, including Azure DevOps and maybe GitHub Actions. So basically, Miloš, what do you think? What old school sysadmin need to change today?
Well, as you mentioned, and we will talk more later during the demos about that, we are definitely in the transition. We are transforming the way we are working. So we are not responsible anymore only for just one piece of the infrastructure, but you actually need to know much more layers of the company that you're working for. So that transition to the DevOps mindset, where you need to be integrated, work much more closely with the application developers. So we call them. So yeah, you really need to try changing your mindset and to be free to experiment and use different tools. So it's really not that scary. Also, yeah, when you would you look all what's there out there that can be used, but if you focus on certain specific things, it's not that scary. It's very easy to use. And yeah, I will show you, and Vladimir also during the demos, how some things are actually even fun to do.
Yeah, so like Miller said, at the first place, mindset is something that have to be changed completely if you want to stay on track with new technologies and be able to learn so quickly. Yes, will be complicated for the first time, first few months, maybe year if you need to transform you a little bit more, but after that will be much easier. So if you, for example, if you understand how that exactly works in ARM templates, you can learn Terraform quickly because logic is similar, more or less the same, different language, okay, but you know how that will work. So especially for younger guys and girls who want to be cloud-oriented administrators and engineers, PowerShell, Azure CLI, ARM templates, Terraform, Ansible, Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions. That's 7 if I count correctly. So we have Bicep, Farmer as some open source project as well. We have Pulumi developers like to work with Pulumi. Miloš, do I forget something? But that's also almost 10 things. Yeah, almost 10 things, and all of them could be used for different environments. Today, if you say PowerShell, 95% of people will say, yes, that's only for Windows. No, that is not only for Windows. Windows PowerShell was intended to use only on Windows infrastructure, but later PowerShell core and then moved to PowerShell. Clear PowerShell name is a tool that you can install on Linux and Macintosh. Am I correct? On macOS?
Yes.
Yes, and on Windows. So you can use on always. A few days ago, my colleagues in company wanted to automate the process of creating distribution groups and Office 365 for all of our new clients. I had a really good PowerShell script with parameters, and everything will be automated an automated way installed. And they said, okay, how we can do that? We can install Jenkins on Windows. No, if you have Jenkins on Linux, you just need to install PowerShell on Linux, and we can automate everything. So everything is about all technology, some operating system, everything is open source, CLI as well. ARM templates are JSON formatted scripts, Terraform is hashcode language, and everything is different, but concept and methodology is the similar. No, we cannot say the same, but it's similar. So what is our idea today? To use 4 different tools to deploy app service and one simple web app, or we will stay on default web app, but using different tools. Of course, if we have more time, we will show somehow that you can integrate everything with Azure DevOps, for example, or GitHub Actions. So the first demo will be presented by Miloš, my colleague, and we will see how we can deploy web app using PowerShell in Azure, of course.
So Marco, if you could share my screen. Yes, great, thank you very much. So first of all, I would like to make a short introduction to the personally favorite tool, but I think it's widespread now amongst complete DevOps people. So I'm using Visual Studio Code, as you can see, and as Vladimir mentioned, and you can see that in the lower right corner, I'm using the latest PowerShell Core 7.1. So it means that I can write scripts that can be used on either Linux, Windows, or Mac OS in the future. But let's move more towards the Azure. So in order to use PowerShell connected to the Azure, you need to have a specific module installed. And the name of the module is AZ. And if we take a look at what that brings with it, so the main module is AZ, but it has a good number of already pre-installed submodules that are pulled with the initial installation of the AZ module. There are more modules that you can install for the communication with certain Azure services that are not in this base package. So, for example, if you want to control Azure Resource Graph, you can notice that it's not installed per default, but you can actually add it if needed. So, as Vladimir said, the idea is to create a web application in Azure using the PowerShell. So if you ever did that through the Azure portal, you would know that you need two specific services. You need to install app service as the base, and then on top of it, you need to deploy web app. So those are two. And if we are working for the first time with the PowerShell regarding Azure module, we are not completely sure. We didn't read the documentation. We are not completely sure about the commands, but we do know how to use PowerShell. So we'll try to find on our own which commands we need to use. So if we look for a get command, we know that it's a app service and web app. So the app is a common word, so we can initiate this command. And within these results, new AZ app service plan. Okay, we have the first one that we will need, and the second one is new AZ web app. So, as we said, we need to use app service plan. So let's see more about the first one. And not to go through the whole documentation, I would like to show you the examples to see how actually easy what we need to know to deploy app service plan. So it requires a resource group to be already pre-created in your Azure subscription. We are giving a name for the app service plan. It needs a location where it will be installed, tier of the application, number of workers, that's the backend of the app service plan, and the size of those VMs. Okay, and now let's take a look at the same for the web app. So again, resource group, name for the web app, location, and we are specifying a previously deployed app service plan where our web application will be deployed. In order not to waste too much time on this, I have pre-created the script that I will show you and go a bit through it. So as we said, for both of them, we need a resource group where it will be deployed. So we can set that one as the parameter already. We need a location for both. And I am assigning as the parameter names for the both app service plan and the web app. So in case we are just starting with a subscription, we can initiate new Azure resource group command, which will create our resource group within a specified location. And if we now run that command, oh, I didn't initialize my parameters. So put them in memory. So it's telling me, because I was already playing around with this, that the resource group exists. If I want to update it, yes, so that I could show you the output. So the name of the resource group that we specified as the parameter, the provisioning state, and we get the ID as the output in case we need it in one of the next commands. So we are now ready to deploy our app service plan. So we have found the command, we saw all the parameters that we need to put into it, that is prepared, and we can initiate deployment of the app service plan. As you can see, it's a very quick thing. It's ready to be used. I have deployed that within the West Europe Data Center. It is in the resource group needed. By default, it is a Windows-based app service plan. You can have both Linux or Windows-based ones. That depends on the coding language that you would like to use, or your application is written in a specific language. You can do with the app service. I think there are 7 or 8 languages that you can use for your application. So some of them are covered by both Linux and Windows, and some of them are Linux or Windows-based ones. And now, when we have our app service, and just to confirm that, here is our resource group. There it is. Our app service plan is created. We can go back to the creation of the web app. So as we saw in the example, we need to pass the resource group as the parameter, location that we already gave, name of the web app, and name of the already deployed app service plan. And if we now initiate this one, it will create additional resource as a web app resource for us. So these are first ways of automating specific deployments that we started to use when we started our transition from the on-premises world to the cloud world, because we were already familiar with the PowerShell commands, how things can be used. So getting to know the AZ module and what needs to be created within the Azure was, I would say, easy part of the job. So writing things like this, and this is very, very simple, as you saw. 2 commands, finding examples in a couple of minutes, putting that into the code, and there you go. You have a script that you can run anytime you need it to create a web app for your test environment. So if we choose these parameters, click F5, it runs, it creates both app service and web app in not more than 5 minutes. And if you try to go to the portal to click, to fill in all the details for both of these services, it will take 15, 20 minutes for you to do. So imagine doing that each time through the portal, or having a script that you will just every other time just run and create your resource. So saving time is the first important part. So there it is, our app service. And if we go into it, quick Azure these days, portal. We already have a demo application that comes with each web app that you deploy. So there it is. So why scripting this way? So it's not just that we are saving time, and time is money, but you're also making sure that each new web app that you would like to deploy, and there are few more things, parameters that you can include, will be the same. There is no way that you will make a mistake clicking through the portal and choosing a different or a wrong size. No, you have it in your script, and you are completely sure, unless you retype it here, that you will have a same environment that you previously had for a test, development, etc. So with this, I would close the first PowerShell demo. Vladimir, I don't know if you need something to add, want something to add, or we can switch to CLI.
Yes, we can switch to CLI, and I wanted to add something, but you mentioned already that we are started with both of us, and many of us from Windows side started with PowerShell, our journey for cloud automation and management and everything, because we were the most familiar with PowerShell, especially. Marco, can you please switch to my... Oh, thank you very much. So, yes, we were familiar with PowerShell, and that was the easiest way for us to start for developing some scripts for automation or etc. But it's also important to say that PowerShell is not that important, as well as is not declarative, because it is imperative. And if you want to have something more complex, you need to spend more time to create some kind of checks for something. For example, does research group is already created, network, etc., or something like that. Especially, that is more or less okay for me, but depends on is something that I really like in declarative model in ARM and Terraform as well. So let's switch to Azure CLI. So basically, what Azure CLI is, you can find on official documentation, command line interface used to create and manage Azure resources. You can run CLI on Docker, on Cloud Shell, on all non-operating systems that we can use, support long running processes. And what is the most important, it looks like Bash command line languages. So there is no official, as far as I No, there is no official statement, but I think that Azure CLI is developed to support all Linux guys who want to use Microsoft Azure and deploy infrastructure. As you can see, is completely different than PowerShell. So I will do the same thing. I will not be so deep like Miloš to save time, but most things are covered. There is no focus on explaining web app. It's focus on showing you different tools. So basically, you need to install. As Miloš show you, if you have PowerShell and want to use, you need to install a module, and that will be done through the PowerShell. If you're using Azure CLI, you just need to install Azure CLI. And the first thing, of course, is to log into your Azure tenant and select subscription. I like to use AZ login with switch use device code, because I will get, in that case, I will get link and code to connecting to log into my tenant. Otherwise, because I like to use I like to use incognito mode. For example, if I don't use device code switch, my default browser will be opened, and that's it. I'm connected, authenticated against my tenant. We will see just in a few seconds, yes, where I'm connected. So because I added output none, there is no option to see in my screen where I'm authenticated. That's for security perspective. Sometimes if you want to do that to audience that cannot see your tenant ID, subscription ID or so. If we want to see, for example, what subscription is mine right now, I will just add query name, or without query name, I will get all JSON formatted list. If I want to see how many subscription I have, I will say AZ account list, etc. If I want to set, I will use AZ account set and define a name or ID of subscription. But if you don't know how to start, you can just type az-help and you will get a big list of potential commands that you can use. Okay, we can see web app here. We can AZ web app, but we at the moment don't know how to go further. We can use -help again or just -h, and you will see what we can do with our web app. So I have prepared. I will create resource group as a first step with name CLL demo in North Europe. Command will be AZ group, and then we can click create, show, etc. We will see after every command that we run, we will get a JSON output, which is default, and that could be changed, or if you want to configure that in different ways. So, as Miloš said, we will create as a first app service plan. I will use basic B1. I cannot remember what Miloš used. Maybe the same thing. But that is not so important. There is limitation and differentiation between standard, premium, isolated, and of course basic, but that is not so important. And as I said, we can see here all details of our app plan. Family B, name B1, capacity, null, tier, basic, ready, subscription, what type of resource is that. So then we need to create, using AZ web app create, name of web app, resource group, and which plan will be used for this application. And our web app will be deployed, as Miller said, by default, that is Windows .NET 4.8, if I remember well. That's default. If you don't add additional switches, that will be your web app. Of course, there are so many other information here in that output, what are outbound IP addresses, what is the last modified time, etc., etc. And I don't want to use Portal, and I need to know what is default host name and how I can reach my application. I will use AZ web app show -- name of our web app resource group, and I will just query for default host name, and I will get default host name of our application, which is not unfortunately clickable, and I just need to switch to my browser. And yes, here is the default page of our application CLL dash demo application. If we back to Portal to confirm that everything is fine, here is our application, our application service plan in North Europe. Everything is correct, deployed. As Miller said, it's really important to know what you want to use. That's not about I don't like to click will be slower. Sometimes you need to use Portal because PowerShell, ARM, CLI will not inform you is there any new feature. You need to see somewhere, or you need to spend more time in command line tools to list all possibilities there if there exist. So me as well, and I think that Miloš as well using PowerShell. Azure Portal, if you need to deploy, I don't know, maybe storage account or virtual network for testing, or one single virtual machine, that is okay. But for every single production deployment in the last 2 years, I using only ARM templates, Terraform, or PowerShell is in my first days. So I would like to ask you to ask us on YouTube channel if you have any kind of questions. I think we are ready to move now to ARM templates and second Miloš presentation and demo. And if you thought that you're scared and that's scary, that is nothing against ARM templates and Terraform. So you will see now how that could be complicated, but also there are additional benefits of using ARM templates.
Yes, Marco, if you could switch again now to my share. So yes, first time a couple of years ago when I saw ARM templates and the JSON format, I was like, no way that I'm ever gonna learn, even try to learn working with this. The portal I'm gonna click and that's gonna be an easy way. But ARM is the base of the Azure, and if you want to automate anything within the Azure, I would say that should be your first preferred resource, because you will actually learn the dependencies between different services and how the things are changed in the background and what happens. And there is a great community, people that are helping us to work more easily and not just to type the JSON format ARM template. So Microsoft took over the Azure Resource Manager to tools extension for the Visual Studio Code from our friend and MVP Sam Kogan, who started developing that extension for easier use of the Azure Resource Manager templates. So if you want to play with it, this is the extension that you must install in Visual Studio Code. And why, you will now see with it how it's relatively easy to create an ARM template. So, as we said, ARM template, it's a JSON file. So I created one JSON file, and this extension is doing this. If I type ARM, it will already provide me with the possibility to generate the base form of each ARM template, JSON format. And since we are currently working with the deployment towards the resource group, I will choose the first one, but you can also now have the possibility to make deployments towards the management groups and subscriptions. So with just 3 letters and a click, you're already getting your base part of each ARM template. And now, yeah, okay, we now need to create app service and web app. If you go to the Microsoft Docs, you will see a template for each of these resources, and it can be very hard to interpret those templates if you never saw them before. There is a great GitHub place of old with a lot of templates that are pre-created, from the simple ones to the more complex ones that you can also look at. But okay, I want to do this on my own. How am I going to do that? So I need to create 2 resources in order to deploy what we need. So first way is that this is the outline of our ARM template, and you will notice that here is a plus sign. So yeah, it gives me a possibility to insert the resource. Okay, and yeah, app service, it's a first in the list. So let's see what happens if I choose app service plan. Whoa, it populated the baseline for deploying app service plan. So why the baseline? If you compare this to the documentation of the app service plan, you will see that there is much more properties that you can include, but this is the baseline, which is enough to deploy the app service plan as we did with the previous PowerShell. It is already giving us a certain name that we can change, but yeah, as you can see, that name is going through a couple of more places as tags and properties of the same plan, and whoa, it's proposing me to do something with it. So yeah, great. I can actually create parameter or variable directly from here with just one click. Okay, let's do that as the parameter. It will ask us for the name, app service name. I don't need any description at the moment. And it created the parameter for us with a default value that was already there. And it changed this first line, so we can now actually see how to call parameters within our resource. We don't need to read about it. We don't need to think about it to know it upfront. It is giving us a first hint. So following that example, I can do the same here. Well, just typing, it offers me parameters. Okay, opening parentheses. Oh, it is reading the parameters that are defined above, and with a couple of letters and clicks, I have it ready. Doing the same for this one. Parameters, app service name. And we are done with the baseline for the app service name. So we now need one more resource, and the most common error that I had when I started working with the JSON templates, when these kind of helping extensions were not yet in a good shape, was to forget, for example, commas. So when you want to add multiple resources, you need to divide them with the comma. Now let's see a second way of creating a resource within our JSON. If we start typing ARM again, okay, let's see. I need a web app. Whoa, there it is. Let's see what happens when I click the web app. Relatively similar as we did with the app service plan. So it creates a base for our web app, which is enough to deploy as we would do with clicking through the portal without any specific changes. Again, we can extract parameters. Web app name. I don't need the description, and there it is. It is also populated in the parameter section. Location is currently defined like this. So what it does, it will trigger a call towards the resource group where we are planning to deploy our resource. It will pick up the location from the resource group, and it will assign it to our service. Sometimes you will see that this is not a good practice, that you should also use the location as the parameter, but for now, this will work. We can leave it as is. Display name, I don't want to have it like this. So also parameters. Let's see what happens now. Oh, yeah, now it's recognizing that we have two parameters. We need to choose the correct one. And one important part when you are putting multiple resources into one ARM template JSON file is, if you need a specific order how they deploy, you need to say that one of them is depending on the other one. Why is this important? Otherwise, it can happen that they start deploying at the same time, and deploying of your web app will throw an error unless the app service is already deployed. So depends on is saying that, okay, this resource will wait until our app service plan is deployed. And I will also typo. Why? This part is not working as expected. Let's try it again. Yes. I'm gonna do it manually. Okay, so that one is done. I could change it in a couple of more places, but I'm just showing you how easy it is to create a template. So other important part of each ARM template is its parameter file. So they usually go in pair. They should, because with a parameter file, you can define the values, and that's the place where you would change in the future the names, for example, for the app service name and the web app. So not having them hard coded in the template itself. So the template should be generalized as much as possible and controlled by the parameter files. And yeah, but how should I write a parameter file? Well, again, an easy thing. So we have a note here that we could select or create a parameter file for our JSON. So do we have one? No, I didn't create it. So let's see what will happen when I choose to create a new one. So it's asking me, should I include all the parameters? Yes, please. For the starters, that would be just great. Where do you want to save me? Within the same folder for now. That works for me. And now you can see that it created the schema and the parameter file for us without us even knowing how it should look like. It took the default values out of our template file. And as I said, this is the place for the future where you want to change the values if you are deploying a new one, for example. Also, a difference that happened in the template file is it's showing us that it's now connected to the specific parameter file, and it's showing us the value that it pulled from the parameter file for the specific parameter in the template. So yeah, it was that easy to create a. Let me save this one. So now when we have our templates, I switch to the previously created one that I prepared for this. Now we need to initiate a specific, again, PowerShell command in order to connect to the Azure and to deploy our template. So in the case of deploying to the resource groups, the new Azure resource group deployment is the command that we need. And let's see what it asks for. So the name, this is the name of the deployment. You can also see those names later back in the portal so you can track what you did. So I'll start like this so we can later see it on. It is asking us for the resource group name where we want to deploy our application. And I'm going to use the same one as I previously deployed so that we can see what happens there. And now we need to provide our template and our parameter file. So in order to do that, we need to specify template parameter file, and we are giving a full path to the parameter file. And also to the template file itself. I think I'm missing a space here. Yes. So this is all you need for initiating a deployment towards the Azure. Now, let's see what happens. Since I was already previously authenticated towards the Azure, Now it's searching for the resource group, and it initiated a deployment. Said that the provisioning is succeeded, and it gave me the values of what was created. So let's take a look if we see this web app now. Back to the portal. And there it is. New app service plan that I created and a web app that was created with it. So if we look at the web app that we pushed via ARM template deployment, you can also notice that here I have tags that I have included within our template that we didn't use, for example, with deploying through the PowerShell. It can be done, but as Vladimir said, that's where the things are starting to be a bit more complicated with using PowerShell, because there are a lot of parameters, the way how you need to push them, etc. So as you can see, for the display name, it took the parameter from the parameter name and populated our tag. And if I'm not mistaken, that would be all regarding the deployment with the ARM templates. Looking at the time, Marco, I think it would be best now to switch to Vladimir, because I think it's valuable to also show the Terraform deployment.
Yeah, of course, especially because till now we saw PowerShell, Azure CLI, and ARM template, which are Microsoft proprietary tools, and everything is native to Microsoft Azure. So one really important and very common third-party tools for deploying and automating infrastructure, Azure, AWS, on-prem, VMware, so many different things, is Terraform. And the logic is pretty the same, but constructions is different a bit. For me, it's more human readable than ARM, even though I can do my deployment with ARM as well. And the Terraform is for me more human readable, has its benefits and pros and cons, of course, as all other tools that we use. But let's see how that exactly works, and I will show you and say you what I like in Terraform. In the first place, I said it's more human readable, less lines of code, and I can separate two different files all data that I need to use. So let's start with the data, where I will provide existing resources that I will use through my implementation, through my deployment. In this case, that's only resource group, which name is CLL-demo, and I will reference that data as RG. In variables.tf, I will configure all variables. That's exactly the same as parameters in ARM templates that I would like to use later. So variable app plan name will be some string, web app names other string, and tag for tagging resources will be something different. Then we have a main.tf, of course, which is the most important thing right now, because without main file we cannot deploy anything, and in main file is everything is described. So Terraform can authenticate to Azure in a few different ways. One of those ways is using Azure CLI. And if I'm logging through the Azure CLI to my Azure account, as I am right now, I don't need to provide anything more than provider Azure RAM and features, nothing in brackets. So what I want to deploy, resource Azure RM app service plan, and I will give some name that's app service plan. Like in ARM templates, we also have possibility to deploy resources and writing from scratch, because there are Terraform additional plugins and IntelliSense for Visual Studio Code. So I will add name, because name needs to be collected from variables. I will set var.applan name, resource group name, and location will be used from existing resource. So I define data for resource group. So I will say data, Azure RM resource group RG name, same for the location, and I will use location of existing resource group. In SKU, I will add basic and B1 only. Later, I need to deploy web app. So I will create resource web app like Mildred did in ARM template. And also I will add depends on. So even though Terraform is smart and logic is really good and can create dependency itself, I like to sometimes that could be problematic, and I like to fix dependency in code. So depends on service plan. Once service plan is deployed, web app will be started with deployment. So we have name collected from var file, resource group name and location from data file, and what is app service plan ID? We will use app service plan and use attribute ID. So I will go one step forward and I will configure source control. So in this case, I will create from one of my public repositories with a simple application. From main branch, I want to deploy application directly to the web app. So in the same Terraform deployment, I will deploy everything as well as application. Of course, at the end, we can use outputs. That is not mandatory, but we can use outputs. If we want to have output on our terminal with some kind of details, I just want to have the full site host name. So how we can do that? That's a bit different. So at the first place, we need to say Terraform init to initialize everything that have to be used. If we have background, storage accounts, background, so many other things, we don't have enough time to think about and talk about Terraform. Yes, now we can say Terraform for validate to check if everything is okay. Basically, validate will check syntax and this everything is okay around writings. Sometimes if validating success, that doesn't mean that your deployment will be good. Then we need to create Terraform plan. Say output, or maybe I have something here. Yes, I have plan, and I will out to separate file appservice.tfplan. And now our Terraform will check local state because it's connected to the cloud. Will check is there any existing resources already deployed using Terraform, because Terraform, if you use for the first time Terraform for deploying something, that's the idea to use Terraform for every single change later, because state file will show you and say you how that is deployed and what is deployed and how that will work. So once that is calculated, that sometimes can take seconds, dozens of seconds, we'll get information, what will happen, how many resources will be created, deleted, changed, and everything. And then we can start with deploying. While we're waiting for this one, there's one command. Terraform is way more readable than ARM template. That's why Microsoft came up with their own bicep. Yes, that's correct. As well as the farmer language, that's DSL as well. And I think that bicep has a really good the future, but as well is pretty early stages. We will see.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it's still the bicep is still generating an ARM template for you to use.
Yeah, of course.
Later on, so it's a bit different way of using those two tools at the moment, so it can't be completely compared with what is that they are bringing. But yeah, definitely bicep will ease our way of learning the ARM.
Okay. Terraform finally started doing something. Refreshing state. If you have any questions, feel free to ask while we waiting for this one. We can answer to your questions, of course. Is there any question?
So, what I would like to mention is, if you are working within a team, a DevOps organization, etc., you must think about the centralizing your data, your templates, or similar things. So I personally am a bit doubtful about Terraform, because it has a state file that you need to take care of. You need to keep it somewhere shared online, so that each team member can actually work on the same state file if you are
Yeah, of course.
taking care of the complete infrastructure.
You can put the state file in many different locations. If you work with AWS, you can use S3. If you work with Azure, you can use storage account. You can use Terraform native storage solutions for that. Yes, that is correct. So as we can see right now, green pluses or something will be added. Of course, we don't have anything right now. Everything will be added. So we have to perform these actions, following command to apply. So we selected that command, and I will start Terraform apply specific plan, and in a few seconds, everything will be started to deploy. And we will have, I think in 1 to 3 minutes, we will have up running our application. And if everything works fine, we will have live application. Yes, that's some basic application for demos, but we will have application in cloud just from one single Terraform file. Yes, we now can see that app service plan is about creating. Yes, after 5 seconds, we have fully functional app service plan. Okay, I think that 57 seconds will be enough to deploy web app. Maybe a little bit more than usual, because we have a source control to configure, which will take maybe 30 seconds up to a minute in most cases, and Terraform will not inform us that everything is completed until source control is configured fully.
Also, thing to have in mind with the Terraform is that if you already have a specific infrastructure deployed in Azure, it's still a bit hard to create inventory file out of it if you want to start using a Terraform in a later time. So just to have it in mind that it requires some manual work before you move completely to automation with Terraform.
Yes, still there is no option to download the infrastructure to Terraform files. You need to do that manually. And one thing which is the cons of using Terraform is if something is not developed on Azure side and on ARM side, no one can start to developing modules for Terraform. So Terraform could be a bit slower for new things than ARM templates, and in some specific scenarios that could be problematic. That really depends on your infrastructure and infrastructure you want to deploy and manage using Terraform.
From that point, I have to add compliments to the HashiCorp team, because they are now working very close with the Microsoft team specialized for implementation of the Terraform. So in 2 weeks' time, the Terraform modules will cover a new service that came from Azure. So compared to a year or two back when we had to wait for a month or even longer, they are doing a great job now.
Okay, it's pretty slow right now. I don't know why. Let's check in portal. Okay, we have application, but I think that at the moment deployment is not configured completely. Maybe yes. I don't know what we're waiting from. Oh, that's Marflow. So yes, apply complete, to resource added, app service plan, and web application. Nothing changed, nothing destroyed. State path is Terraform state. Output, because we configure an output, is default host name is CLL -demo app tf and standard web app. So let's see what we can see as well here. If everything is fine, yes, good. Our application is up and running. Everything is fine. Everything is connected. So we didn't do anything more from deployment perspective. We just automatically configured source GitHub, and that's it. Everything is fine. So if I change anything in my application and have a commit all changes and push all changes to GitHub account, new code deployment will be started on that. So there is a lot of different things that you can do, and so many possibilities for that. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to show you other cool features, but maybe we can organize new viewing in a couple of weeks, or maybe on marathon, and show you how we can do that using Azure DevOps, how you can integrate Terraform and ARM templates in Azure DevOps, GitHub Actions, how you can deploy everything automatically and create everything on the click for your developers, especially if they need to deploy sometimes test application for testing for additional testing or developing or whatever. So everything is fine. Let's check one thing more, Terraform state. And we are able to see everything here in this state file. Everything which is deployed right now in these 245 lines is declared here. So once we, for example, let me find terminal. Okay, if I click Terraform plan out app service plan again, everything will be checked, and we will that information that everything is up to date. There is no need to run this plan again because everything is fine. If we need to change something manually, that is not a good idea if you have a bigger plan to use Terraform for managing your environment in Azure, not just application. Miloš, do you have anything to add regarding all of those tools that we show to our audience today?
As you mentioned, with these 4 demos, we just scratched the surface of transforming to Azure DevOps developer, platform engineer, whatever you would like to call it. And yes, there is much more behind that we can now take as a step 2. But as Vladimir mentioned, we could do that for at least 2 more hours of demos. So I believe that it would be great to organize a next level of becoming a developer session.
Yeah, of course. We would like to encourage you to fill a survey that is posted and give your feedback. Of course, we can create another session for this little more deeper with more advanced options. But if there is no any feedback from audience, there will not be so valuable.
Sure.
So thank you all of you again. If there is any question, we will be here for 5 minutes more. Feel free to ask. We would like to answer your questions.
Marco, are you with us still? We didn't scare you, hopefully. Or maybe we did. I haven't seen any additional questions coming up.
Mark has some kind of serious issue with his computer, so no one can stop us right now.
We'll stay live for the rest of the night. So yeah, this is just the part that we showed you how our personal transformation looked like and why they today in a specific times call us infrastructure developers, because we need to take care of some sort of a code. Will it be in the PowerShell, CLI, ARM templates, or a Terraform? It is a code, so in a way, we became developers.
Yeah, yes, back we had demos for DevOps and GitHub Actions for deploying everything, but unfortunately there's no enough time to do everything. But yes, we can arrange new one session to and basically continue this conversation how we can do that. So thank you all of you again, and see you next time.
Have a great rest of the evening. See you.
Bye.